Time for sound design. Today I want to explore the warping functionality in Ableton Live and see how far I can stretch it. So I'm gonna record some drums with a drum machine in Ableton. I'm gonna record my voice and I'm gonna record some synthesizer inside Ableton, the drift synthesizer. And I'm gonna record all these sounds at a high BPM, at 300 BPM, and then I'm gonna slow it down to 75, so 4 times, and see what kind of character or texture it reveals by doing so. So this idea is inspired from old tape machines where you would record something at regular speed, and then with a lot of old tape machines there's a functionality to play it back at half speed. In newer digital pedals like this one, the Ditto X2 looper from TC Electronic, there is a functionality to play the loop back at half speed. That is the idea, but now I'm gonna slow it down 4 times in Ableton, and the warping functionality in Ableton has different modes. So with different audio examples, I'm gonna try the different modes in the warping functionality and see what kind of differences it brings about. Without further ado, let's get to Ableton and let's get cracking. Ableton tempo is at 100 BPM now. And let's start by building a beat with the DMX core kit. So this is a standard kit in Ableton. I'm just going to make a very basic pattern with kick and snare, or at least starting with this. So that sounds like this. Nothing special. Let's add some closed hi-hats. And also an open hi-hat on the 1, and then lower the hi-hats in volume a bit. So this is a very basic beat, but it will work for this example. Now when I play this at 300 BPM, it doesn't sound that good. But that's fine. So I'm going to duplicate the track now, Command D or Control D, depending if you're on Mac or on Windows. I'm going to mute the first track, right click on the track, and then do freeze, and now do flatten. So now I have this as audio at 300 BPM, so that's very fast. So now I'm going to lower the BPM to 75, and as you can see the warp is on, so now it will try to adjust this beat to the new tempo, which means that since it's 4 times slower, it will try to play it, but because there's so much difference, it will create a bit of artifact. So in the mode, the warping mode, I leave it on beats because this is a beat. So let's see how it sounds. And let's zoom in a little bit. So if I look at 1 bar, it looks fine, but what you hear is sort of, it's almost like if there's an extra instrument. When you hear the kick, for instance, there's sort of a stutter effect. I'm going to duplicate this track again and freeze it again, so we can actually see what the audio looks like, the audio waveform. And now when we zoom in to 1 bar, you can actually see what you hear, that it's trying to have these, it's trying to play the audio. So by having a simple drum beat, record at 300, slow it down to 75, you create all these kind of artifacts in the sound. And now that I flatten it to audio, I have it as a sample, so I can chop up the drum break into individual hits and use them as is. And it sounds like I use some kind of complex stutter effect or delay perhaps to create this, but it's actually no effects. It's just only changing the tempo and using the warping functionality. That was example number 1. Let's go to example number 2. I'm going to record my voice with this microphone into Ableton at 300 BPM, and then slow it down to 75 and see what kind of other warping modes I can use on my voice. Time for sound design. So this is the sample. Time for sound design at 300 BPM. Let's make a copy and play it at 75. Time for sound design. So it sounds almost like I'm stuttering. Let's go to the warp mode here. There's a drop down. So on the drums, we used beats. For this one, I'm going to use tones. Time for... That already sounds more interesting, I think. Time for sound design. What if we change the grain size here? Time for sound design. Time for sound design. Time for... So this sounds a bit like with the old samplers that Fatboy Slim used, for instance, the Akai S950 and 900, where it really kind of stretches the audio and you clearly hear that it struggles, but it gives an interesting character. And then somehow I feel that on the voice it's more forgiving than on the drums. On the drums they become unrealistic immediately. Time for sound design. One of the things that you can use this for on voice is to sample like a little vocal from a old rap record or from a documentary or anything you find on YouTube, and then use this warping functionality to, when you play back at a lower speed, use it to basically transform it. And this is all without any additional effects on it as well. Okay, example number 3, the drift synthesizer in Ableton. I'm going to play a few notes at 300 BPM again, and then bring it down as well and use again another warping mode. I have just loaded up the drift synthesizer, the init patch. Nothing special. Let's put in some notes on every quarter beat. C and a B. Let's put it at 300. Copy it and freeze and flatten it to audio. So this is the audio. Now I'm going to play it back at 75. And let's use, I used the beats and the tones, so let's use texture now. And change the grain size and the flux parameter. And actually what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna leave the tempo of the session at 75 BPM, but I'm gonna stretch the audio back to 300 BPM. I'll show you how you can do that. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm copy this track again, freeze and flatten to audio. So this is actually how it looks like. And this is now at 75 BPM. I'm gonna leave the session at 75 BPM, but this clip I wanna bring back to 300. So I'm basically gonna stretch it out again. So I do ×2 twice. So what I would do with this kind of sample is maybe chop it up and use bits of it to see which bits are nice. So let's do that. I'll copy and paste it to another audio track underneath. So what if I take the last bit of each note, maybe this bit. So yeah, as you can hear, this is stuff you would never sort of come up with for making, but by using a synthesizer, slowing it down, freezing it, speeding it up again, and then chopping it up, you can come up with textures that are quite interesting. And this is all without using any effects. So no fancy plugins, no Ableton effects, no delays, none of that stuff. Just to go back to the beginning, what if I bring the drums in now on top of this synth texture? How does that sound? So yeah, as you can hear, it gets pretty weird. So maybe combining drums that are stretched like this and a synth that is stretched like that is too much. Maybe it's better to use this synth and put some regular drums underneath. And the same with the drums. If you use this kind of drums, maybe you just want to have a nice mellow kind of electric piano pad or synth pad in the background. But yeah, anything is possible basically. Let me know if you use a technique like this to slow things down to create character, whether you do this in Ableton or with hardware or with tape machines. And let me know in the comments if you have any questions. And as always, see you in the next one.